With the excitement that's usually felt by small children on Christmas morning, I suddenly awoke. Within a quick moment, I threw my coat and boots over my pajamas, grabbed my camera and tripod, and stepped out onto the balcony. Right then, the bells began to ring. A gentle glow was just starting to touch the eastern face of the beautiful Matterhorn mountain. When we'd arrived the day before, the mountain had been covered in low-lying clouds, and I hadn't had a good look at the peak yet. Half an hour later, the world was getting brighter. In the exact moment that the rosy alpenglow kissed the peak of the Matterhorn, the bells began to ring once again. It was one of those magical experiences that fills your heart. Here I was in a faraway land, sharing time with two of the people I love the most in the world, celebrating the joy of Christmas and gazing out at the amazing splendor of nature. My heart was very full. The town of Zermatt is absolutely lovely. Nestled in the heart of the Alps, it's a popular destination for skiing and hiking, let alone the paradise that it is for photographers. With a mix of old and new, it seems to be growing quickly with lots of new construction. Towering above the town, the Matterhorn is one of the most recognized mountains in the world. It sits right on the border of Switzerland and Italy. Shaped like a pyramid, its four sides face the four directions of the compass. From our B&B in Zermatt, we had a wonderful view of the east and north faces. Though I was restricted to having just a few feet to move to the left or to the right, I really enjoyed the images I was able to create from our balcony. When you see how tiny the chairlift is, you realize just how massive this mountain is. It was fun to watch the wind blowing playfully along the mountain's edge, sending the snow swirling and dancing along the cliff. I finally realized that I was freezing cold standing outside in my pajamas, so I slipped back inside to warm up and to start our Christmas morning. Wandering through the village, the bells created a happy feeling of celebration. It's wonderfully multicultural, and you hear many languages spoken. This part of Switzerland is predominantly German-speaking. Before this, I'd been staying in a French area, so I was feeling kind of proud of myself when at a restaurant I caught myself, and instead of saying merci, I remembered to say danke. Of course, the waiter replied, prego, which is Italian. So funny. I laughed at all the language gymnastics that were going on in my head. A stroll through the old part of town, the Hinterdorf, is like stepping back in time. There are more than 30 traditional buildings that were built in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. These were homes, storehouses, stables, and barns, all built with larch from the surrounding areas. The rock slabs on the roofs compress the timber and make them stronger. The buildings are placed on flat stone slabs and balanced on stilts, partly to keep the mice out. In the afternoon, we took the Gornergrat Railway up into the mountains. Gornergrat Ridge has some of the most spectacular views I've ever seen. The Monte Rosa summit is actually higher than the Matterhorn. It's the highest point in Switzerland and the second highest in Western Europe. The Gorner Glacier that runs down its west side was fascinating to see. The distinctive image of the Matterhorn was first put on Toblerone chocolate bars in 1960. Unfortunately, it won't be for much longer. You may have heard in the news recently that Toblerone is moving some of their manufacturing to Eastern Europe. The Swiss rules are tight. In order to protect the Swiss brand for high-end luxury goods, they've required that products using distinct Swiss images must be manufactured within the country. So, Toblerone will be replacing the Matterhorn with a more generic-looking mountain on their packaging. Another fun fact, there's currently also an image of a bear in the logo, which is a wink to the Swiss city of Bern, known as the City of Bears, where Toblerone was founded. Do you see it? I can imagine how life-changing it would be to climb to the summit of the Matterhorn. With the sheer drops that fall dramatically down on all sides, the thrill would be extraordinary. There are more than 3,000 climbers every year that make the attempt. What an achievement they must feel. There are 4 routes to the top, but 70% of people use the main and easiest route that runs up the northeastern side. Sadly, since its first climb in 1865, there hasn't been a single year when someone hasn't died. To date, more than 500 people have tragically passed. The first ascent of the Matterhorn is quite an intriguing and sad tale. There were two teams of climbers competing fiercely to be the first to the top. Jean-Antoine Carrel, an Italian, had been the guide for Edward Whymper, a Brit, for 7 out of 8 of Whymper's prior attempts. Carrel wanted a team of local men to be the first to summit. Whymper, of course, wanted his own team to be first, so the competition was on. Whymper's team included himself and Lord Francis Douglas, plus father and son guides Peter Taugwalder Sr. and Peter Taugwalder Jr. The night before the climb, they decided to join together with 3 other friends, Charles Hudson, guide Michel Crow, and a novice climber, Douglas Haddo. On the 14th of July, 1865, they set a path up the east and north faces of the Matterhorn. For the final steep section to the peak, the team of 7 roped up together for safety. As they reached the last few meters, Whymper and Crow detached themselves from the rope and dashed to the summit together, becoming the first to achieve this remarkable feat. Less than 200 meters below, the Italian team saw that they had been beaten, turned and started their descent. They did return 3 days later and reached the summit successfully. So after an hour of celebration and rest, the British team roped up and started their descent. Tragically, the novice climber Haddo slipped and fell on Crow, which then pulled Hudson and Douglas down the slope. The 3 at the top of the rope, Taugwalder Sr., Whymper, and Taugwalder Jr., had just enough time to brace themselves. Sadly, the rope between Taugwalder Sr. and Douglas broke, sending the 4 men to their deaths. Following this accident, there was a rush of media attention and speculation about what had happened. It was malicious and bitter and involved a lot of blame-laying in all directions. The poor farmer, Taugwalder Sr., was accused of cutting the rope and also blamed for using an inferior rope. The inquiry after, though, disproved this, and the 3 survivors were all acquitted. What has only recently come to light is that, in fact, when Whymper had detached himself on the ascent to grab the glory of being first, he had actually cut that rope to free himself. Because of that, the group wasn't able to use the newer, high-tech rope they brought, and instead had to use an older, low-strength, but still acceptable, rope for the descent. Queen Victoria herself wanted to ban Brits from this dangerous new sport, but with all of the media attention, the interest in mountaineering grew quickly from then on. The town of Zermatt attracted more and more people who were fascinated with climbing. Of course, alpinism has since become a very popular sport and hobby worldwide. As the sun set over Zermatt, we shared a wonderful Christmas dinner together. The following morning, we enjoyed our last looks at the town. We caught the train north, and of course, the views from the train through the Matter Valley are also stunning. With shutter speeds set on super fast, we tried to record some of that wonderful rail journey to keep alongside our other fantastic memories of this great adventure in Switzerland. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Cheers!